With the release of Snake Eyes, we now have 3 live-action G.I. Joe movies. The reason I say live-action is because there is an animated movie which is kind of a continuation of the TV show, and for the record, I haven't seen the TV show and I don't have any nostalgia for G.I. Joe, so I've just gone with these 3 live-action movies. Let me know what your ranking would be down below, and feel free to include that animated movie if you want from like the 80s or something. But anyways, let's get right into it. Easily in 3rd and last place is G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. Despite coming out in 2009, G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra feels like it belongs in the 80s with the amount of cheese it has in it. And since cheesy action films were very popular in that time, that is mainly due to the familiar story and the awful dialogue. However, this film does differ from being another forgettable action movie where the plot involves stopping an evil organization from these weapons falling into their hands, and where it differs is because of the source material, but unfortunately it makes it memorable for the wrong reasons. That source material provides some really awkward CGI and some sped up action scenes, which is meant to be part of the suits they're wearing, but mixed in with everything around them which is going in normal time, it just looks really awkward with that poor CGI. You can maybe give the film the benefit of the doubt maybe because of its budget, but this had a gargantuan budget, so there's no excuse. And also with the action scenes, it was just as if the cinematographer couldn't keep his hands still, it was constantly shaking. As this is the first of these 3 live action movies that came out, it was off to a very poor start as my first introduction to G.I. Joe. Coming in at 2nd place is Snake Eyes. This, of course, being the newly released one, which is the reason I'm making this video. And it initially starts off with some interesting themes tying into the Yakuza. However, this origin film for fan favourite Snake Eyes does underwhelm. Now, as I said, I'm not a huge fan of G.I. Joe, I don't know much of it, but Snake Eyes was always a character who, had this air of mystery about them. If I was to pick someone to have an origin film, it would probably be him, but it just really fails to tell a compelling and interesting story. And even for those die-hard fans who've been waiting a long time for this sort of movie, the titular character only wears his suit for one scene this whole film. I know it's an origin film, so it's like about him becoming, but still, the way it was promoted, you would have expected more. And for someone like me who wasn't too familiar with the source material, going into this you expect, at least some cool action, as it has a lot of potential on that front, but honestly, the action was probably one of the weakest parts of this film, as I'm sure what the stuntmen were doing was great, but we just couldn't tell because, just like in Rise of Cobra, although much worse, the cameramen couldn't keep their hands still. I know it's intentional, but all the scenes just look like a blur and it's hard to tell what's going on as it's constantly going like this, from side to side. So for any G.I. Joe fans, this won't feel that craving for a good G.I. Joe movie. It will be yet another disappointment. And in fact, when it does try to have those ties to the larger G.I. Joe universe, it also brings it down a bit as it tries too hard to connect it to things. Coming in at 1st place is G.I. Joe Retaliation. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a good film because it's in 1st place. We're not dealing with much quality here, but out of the 3, this is the one I actually enjoyed the most. But like I said, it's still a very poor film, very weak. But coming off the back of Rise of Cobra, I was expecting this one to be sort of similar, judging by the ratings on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one much more, although saying that, I still had a lot of problems with it. But on a more positive note, they fixed all the action, and not only did they fix the sort of shaky cam and load of cuts, but they also brought in some impressive fight sequences, most memorably on a mountainside. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. So it showed more quality with the stunt work and the action choreography, but still, on a story level, there were a lot of weaknesses, cliches, and plot holes. I mean, to be fair to it, it was a lot more ambitious than I thought it would with the rise of the threat and what they actually show, because in a lot of these films they're like, oh, this could end the world, but then it doesn't actually get to that, so the stakes don't feel that big, but you do feel at some points the stakes here. There are a lot of things which didn't make too much sense, and even those things which do make sense, those are the cliche ones, so what did make sense wasn't good. But they did swap out a lot of that cheesiness for a more serious tone, which doesn't normally work for action movies, as it makes it feel like they're taking themselves too seriously, but that is partially the reason why I prefer this one so much more than its predecessor, because it just doesn't try and deliver those cheesy laughs, or, you know, sometimes they're fun in films, sometimes they're not, and they were not fun in Rise of Cobra, but this more serious tone with Dwayne Johnson in the lead, it made for a, let's just say, a better film. Not a good film, certainly not a good film though. It's still overall quite a poor action film, but I'm sure one that young audiences would enjoy, and possibly those of the source material. So that was my ranking of all 3 G.I. Joe films. As I said at the beginning, let me know yours in the comments, and feel free to include the movie which continued on from the cartoon. If you want to see my previous video, which was a Space Jam ranking, yes, there are 3, I'll leave a clickable card up in the corner there, and you can find out what that mysterious third movie is. But anyways, I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in my next video.